Mei Mei is one of the strongest sorcerers in Jujutsu Kaisen and honestly one of the biggest threats to society moving forward, at least in my humble opinion. And that's not only because she has an incredibly powerful sorcery, but also because of how morally dubious she is and how she is of a singular mindset in the pursuit of her own strength and influence. So let's talk about that today. Just what is Mei Mei's full potential? All right, first of all, shout out to Saint for asking me to do this today. And just in case this is anyone's first time seeing one of my full potential videos, this is a series I've been doing where we take a character from JJK and just extrapolate out how strong they could be one day. So looking at Yuji or Yuta or, whoever 10 years in the future, if they continue to train, continue to develop, like what are they capable of? So that's what we're doing for Mei Mei here. It's obviously a little different because she's already like a full-grown adult, but I do still think there's some interesting things to talk about, especially given where Jujutsu Kaisen ended. So let's get into it, but spoilers if you didn't finish the series. Okay, so to kick things off, Mei Mei is a grade 1 sorcerer. That is the highest designation you can be given in the standardized ranking system, right? Only the special grades are above them, and those are just straight anomalies. So Mei Mei is amongst the best of the best when it comes to Jujutsu sorcerers, and her work speaks for itself because she is constantly hired for missions, even though she is outside of the standard Jujutsu society, right? She is not affiliated with either school, and yet she still finds work with how strong she is. And if that's not enough, you're not impressed by the bureaucracy ranking of sorcerers, well, game recognized game, right? And Gojo, the strongest sorcerer there is, recognizes Mei Mei's strength. He says, "Oh, you wouldn't cry. You're too strong." And to build off of that moment from Hidden Inventory, where Gojo comes in and saves Utahime and Mei Mei from that house, the only reason they even showed up is because it was so weird that they hadn't heard from them in 2 days, even though Mei Mei was on that mission. So it speaks to her strength, being like, oh, Mei Mei was on that mission, and we still haven't heard from them in 2 days? Something must be up. So why is Mei Mei so strong? Well, for one, she's an incredibly capable fighter in close range combat with her massive axe, but then on top of that, she has an incredibly powerful and versatile curse technique, which is black bird manipulation. She can essentially control birds, and that has so many different applications as we saw in the series. She literally live streamed the Gojo and Sukuna fight using birds as cameras. So the implications there are pretty crazy. She can essentially like live stream what she sees through birds. So the amount of control and like sorcery she can perform here is ridiculous. Like just think about the surveillance state that Mei Mei could set up in terms of getting blackmail on people, in terms of, just any and all reconnaissance in general. Like the non-combat applications of this thing are insane, especially in the mind of somebody who is going to be willing to cross lines and manipulate people, which, newsflash, Mei Mei is. But again, that's just non-combat application. The combat application of this is where it gets the most scary. Because with this technique, she can do something that she has named Bird Strike, which is essentially where she gets the bird to trade its life in return for an insane boost in its potential, basically bypassing the normal limits of its cursed energy in order to do an insane attack. And you can't see it in this panel, but Mei Mei essentially asks her brother here, what's the key to like vastly improving your jujutsu? And he says, that would be a binding vow with your life as the trade-off. So she is capitalizing on that principle by trading birds' lives in order to get insane boosts in potential and attack potency. Now you might be saying, sure, it gets a boost because it's trading its life, but it's still a crow at the end of the day. How strong could that actually be? And here we see her one-shot a special grade cursed spirit with this. And in fact, no one has ever survived a bird strike except for Satoru Gojo, of course. Later on in the Shinjuku Showdown, we will even see how seriously Sukuna takes the threat of these crows, where he is always paying attention to them when they are nearby. And Mei Mei says, Gojo, Kinjaku, and Sukuna. Guys at that level always shoot my crows down because they're afraid of a direct hit. And that's just one singular crow, by the way. So Mei Mei is riding around with a murder at all times. Like the damage potential that she can push out is ridiculous. And not only the fact that she has that in her arsenal, but also that she possesses the mind for sorcery to even realize that that was possible, right? That wasn't just a given with her technique. It's like, hey, you can control birds. good luck, right? But with that, she not only built this insane, drone surveillance system, but an attack that can rival the likes of Gojo Sukuna Kinjaku, the strongest in the verse, right? To be able to come up with that binding vow speaks to her sorcery prowess in general. And honestly, Mei Mei's mindset is the scariest thing about her, and we know how important mindset is when it comes to the pursuit of great strength and jujutsu sorcery, right? So Mei Mei is right there in terms of being singularly focused on her own growth. And we know that she takes this to such an extent that she will manipulate and take advantage of anyone, including her younger brother, Wee Wee, who she has made dedicate his life to her and stake his own life on the line. To call back to those binding vows we were referring to with the crows, she does that to her brother, basically only allowing him to use sorcery when she grants him permission and when he needs to protect her, because she has placed him in charge of anti-domain defenses, okay? Domain expansions. The scariest, most lethal, strongest form of jujutsu she has placed upon the shoulders of her 12-year-old brother to counter. So he's in charge of simple domain and all that jazz. And again, he can only even use it when she grants him explicit permission to do so. And again, Mei Mei is not affiliated with any of the jujutsu schools or the big clans or anything. She is solely in this for herself, which is why she only takes missions when she gets paid out the wazoo for them, or if there is something else that she can personally gain from it. And all of that is why I view Mei Mei as one of the biggest threats to Jujutsu society looking forward from the end of the series. Because now Sukuna's gone, Kinjaku's gone, things are kind of calming down, right? The big clans aren't going to war, the new Shadow Style School isn't going to try and make a coup to take over, but you know who might? Mei Mei, because again, she's got all the money, she's got all the influence, she's literally got the surveillance state if she needs it, and she has cemented her bloodline to be the new head of the new Shadow Style School once Kusakabe retires. We know that the only reason they helped during the Shinjuku Showdown was because Wee would be named the head of that clan once it was all said and done. And we know that Mei Mei was even considering about all of the money she could make once he was the clan head, once they would be able to reestablish some of these binding vows and that you must pay to learn simple domain. And God forbid they reinstate the vows which stole life from the disciples. Now, y'all aren't going to know what I'm talking about unless you did finish JJK, but essentially the new Shadow Style School was incredibly corrupt, and they were siphoning life and money from their disciples in order to prop up these ancient clan heads. But they took them out, made Kusakabe the clan head, and he got rid of that so that everyone could learn simple domain, right? But when Wee gets reinstated, he's just going to listen to whatever Mei Mei does or tells him to do, right? And so that's an incredibly powerful place of influence for that sadistic mind to be in control. So all of that are things we know for sure at the end of JJK. Like, her power and influence are going to rise because of the station that Wee will inhabit. And that's just scary to think about. But even beyond that, material influence that she possesses, she might also literally get way stronger in terms of her sorcery because of Wee, right? Because he is the one responsible for swap training. So even though Mei Mei doesn't have a domain or RCT, she could very easily unlock those things by making Wee swap her with people that could train her to understand them, right? We saw how efficient that was in accelerating the growth of sorcerers. Even though Mei Mei is older and, maybe has reached her full potential, Wee is a cheat code to unlock that, right? She could train with Yuta, figure out barriers, or Kusakabe, whoever, right? Figure out how to unlock a domain. She could swap with Shoko, Yuta again, to learn RCT. So really, she has a pretty high curve almost compared to anyone else because she has Wee at her beck and call to swap her 2 times a month no matter what. Honestly, Wee is just such an insane cheat code for her, not even in terms of her own growth, but just in terms of another power and manipulation tool for society, right? Like, oh, you want to learn simple domain? You're going to have to pay your dues to the new Shadow Style School. Oh, You want to learn domain expansion? We can make that happen. It'll just cost you $2 million. So it's not that I think Mei Mei is the next Sukuna and that she represents a threat in that regard, but she's just not the person you want to be in control of that much power and influence, right? She's not a mustache twirling villain, but if we thought the higher ups were bad, let's see what society looks like in 20 years after this family has been in control. And I didn't even mention this.